Hey, this is Tess from Sharing Kindness, and this is the Sharing Kindness podcast. Today, we're talking about the reasons behind why we should practice gratitude, affirmations, and kindness, and how you can create a good habit, a very quick and easy habit on bringing more and more thankfulness into your life. And also, we're talking about why I started Sharing Kindness, all the raw emotions and feelings behind it. And I'm here with my co-host, Kyle. Say hi, Kyle.
Hi guys, it's an honor to be here, Tess. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Kyle helped me with my first launch of the very first advent calendar that I did. So it was just your skill set is honestly, I'm like,
Well, you're too kind. I think for me, being able to help you with your digital marketing, like that's my background. I've worked in digital marketing for a long time, and I've always wanted to work with brands and entrepreneurs like yourself who are really making a difference in the world. So when you reached out to me recently and asked me to potentially partner up, I was so excited to be a part of the journey, because to be involved in any way for me just makes me feel really good. I know that this is something that the world needs. So it's an amazing experience for me to see this manifest into reality. So I'm excited. I think this year is going to be one of the biggest and best yet. And you've had a lot of big and very exciting milestones through launching the brand. So that's just my 2 cents.
I know. And this is it. And this is where we're going to need you and everyone who is listening. We also need your help. We won't be able to do this without you either.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, this isn't really about us. This is about building a community, building a tribe around the Sharing Kindness brand, right? And getting other people who see the mission and see the vision of where this can go to make an impact on our communities. So from the founder here, what reason are we kind of starting this podcast in your mind?
Oh, that's a big question. Okay. No, my number one thing is to be able to start real conversation, talk about real things, and letting everyone know that you're not alone. We'll have our own struggles in our own little or big ways. But at the end of the day, what we need to do is to come together, talk about it, connect, and tell ourselves that you are good enough just the way you are. But
Totally.
yeah. And this is where the podcast and this whole thing is just, we want to spread a message of you're not alone. We're in this
It's
together.
amazing. I definitely think the podcast is great for that, because hopefully we can bring on guests, early childhood educators, psychologists, people who are experts at, I don't know, parenting advice, that will be able to embark on sharing the fact that like we're not alone, everybody's on their own journey, and that nobody's perfect, right? Like we're all trying to figure this out. But if we're able to share kindness to ourselves, to our loved ones, like it just means that you're going to have such a better outlook on life. I really do think that, from all of our conversations that we've had in the past about sharing kindness and the science behind gratitude and affirmations, how much of an impact it can make. Like, I just think that your story is such a great story to share, because I know that so many people will look at it and go, I was there, or I can relate to those feelings. I lost myself in motherhood as well. And I think that those are really impactful stories that just by sharing, people can go, I'm not alone. And that's really, I think, a big part of the mission here, right? Is to tell people that, look, you're not alone if you're feeling these thoughts or you're thinking this way. Is that right? Or like, am I onto something there?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, 100%, because you're not alone. If there's one thing that I hope for you to take home with you from listening or watching this first episode of this podcast, is that you're not alone. We're all in this together, and we all have struggles, big, small, or medium, and just being able to embark on a journey of self-discovery and being able to monitor the self-talk and adopt more gratitude into your life, my mission's complete.
That's awesome, Tess. What an inspirational start to the whole podcast, to be honest. So I know that a lot of people may know this already, but let's say that people have come in here first time ever hearing of Sharing Kindness, don't know who the wonderful Tess is. What was your story, Tess? How did you get started on this?
About 3 years ago, I honestly lost myself completely to motherhood. I honestly didn't even know who I was anymore. I didn't know what to do. Am I going to go back to work? Am I going to do this? I remember in the middle of the night, I just thought, it was like, oh my God, I need to find out more about myself, I suppose. I mean, I don't know. Have you ever felt that way?
I mean,
Something like that?
I'm not a mum, so I can't relate, but I can totally appreciate when you do become a parent. It's such a big milestone in your life. And I imagine that your life just becomes everything about your kids. And it would be so, I'm sure there's so many people who can relate, who are listening
And
to
that's
that,
it.
you know?
And this is it. And that's when you lose, I suppose you gain an identity, but you
Yeah.
lose an identity as well. And that identity is like me as that happy, bubbly type of person and outgoing. And then now I was just stuck at home breastfeeding and like,
Yeah.
oh my God, who am I? And I think throughout that process, I've just realized that to everyone on the outside, I would appear as a very confident and very outgoing and extrovert type of person. But like I was crumbling on the inside and I was thinking,
Wow.
like, who am I to teach my kids how to be confident or how to be resilient or be kind or be happy when I wasn't
Mm.
even feeling that myself? And I think that was that like they were the conversations at night. Like, how do I teach my kids to be confident when I'm not confident? And how do I teach them in the ever changing world of ours? Like, how do I teach them to be resilient and to
Mm.
cope with all of that and social media and all the rest of it? And this is when I then realized I had a bigger purpose than ever before. And it was honestly to just set my children up, not having to rewire their brain. That has been a long process for myself to
Mm.
honestly just get through. And it's just this whole, we've got to create some new pathways through the brain.
It's to be honest, I think that there's no challenge like parenthood. I think you overcome so much of your own trauma and life experiences. And I imagine that the feelings of imposter syndrome, like I feel imposter syndrome all the time. It's such a
100%.
human experience or characteristic that I think a lot of people face, but I couldn't imagine how the burden of trying to raise a human into the world and raise them well and teach them everything to have a good life, that would
Yeah.
be incredibly daunting. You could really feel lost in that, you know, and feel.
And that's one of the reasons, like core reasons too, why I want to do all these things with sharing kindness, because I just want everyone to know that they're not alone. And I think the common trait that just keeps reappearing in my life, it's the perfectionism, the pleaser, that everything needs to be perfect and everything. It's like, oh, as long as everyone else are happy. And I think there's that finding that fine balance, because that kind of starts within. And if we can choose to be kind to ourselves initially, it's just
Yeah,
going to feel so natural to share that kindness with others. But
100%.
if you
Yeah.
start like what I did to just be kind to everyone else and neglect yourself, it's just going to be a never-ending kind of journey.
I bet you there's so many people listening who could probably relate to that, where mothers are such a powerful force in everyone's lives and they sacrifice so much for their family and their kids and almost put themselves last on the list of priorities, right? They're like, I need to look after my kids. I need to look after my partner. I need to make sure my family are
Yeah.
provided for. And
it's
yeah,
always at the bottom. It's always
yeah.
at the bottom. And all the thoughts going through my head made me crumble inside. Like, who am I? Who am I to raise children? I'm not even confident myself. How am I supposed to raise my children to be confident, resilient, and kind in this ever-changing world of ours?
Well, Tess, I'm pretty sure that most people could probably relate to that story on some level. Parenthood's tough. And I think that most mothers will probably throw themselves into that huge challenge, which parenthood is, like you, and become the mum, to be honest. I think it's just that your realization that you weren't prioritizing your own needs first. You weren't putting the oxygen mask on yourself before you're trying to tend to everybody else. And so
Such a good.
you realize that you don't want to pass that on to your kids. And what an impactful realization that you've made. The voice in your head often is the voice of your parents and how you were raised. So if you had parents who were still healing from their trauma, often that's passed on to you, right? And then you have this constant kind of voice in your head that's passing on that trauma.
We've just got to be honest, because we cannot control what the world will tell our children. We cannot.
That's true.
It's just
Yeah.
impossible.
Yeah.
But we can control what we tell them, and we can control what they tell themselves. And I think that's the power of self-talk, you know, catching ourselves thinking, is it negative? Is it positive? Okay, well, if it's negative, let's dig deeper and kind of go, oh, okay, and go, hey, I can hear you, but do you know what? I choose not to listen to you today because I'm gonna go on this path. But it's just a constant conversation with yourself, and I think that's what I want to achieve with sharing kindness as a whole. Is, you know, start talking about that self-talk, be kind to yourself, and you'll be kind to others. It was kind of, I've had these thoughts about what to do. I knew I wanted to do something for myself because I knew I wanted to be that mum to be able to take my kids to school and pick them up and be there for them. So I knew I couldn't go back into the corporate world. And I knew I couldn't do that. But it was in the middle of a very kind of heated conversation, as husbands and wives do at times. We had an argument. Relationships. So anyway, we're having this conversation, and I honestly thought that the two kids were in bed, but my 4-year-old at the time, Sienna, she comes into a bedroom where we are having this conversation about, and she honestly just like crawls up into my knee and like she whispers really softly into my ear and it's like, when we're angry, our loving hearts calms us down. And I was like, oh my God, like you're 4 years old. Yeah. And she's honestly, and there were these little affirmation cards that I had just made up like myself, like drawn some, whatever. And she repeated the affirmation to me, and she'd even put it into context of where to use it. And at that time, I honestly I need to embrace this more. I need to just have them use different types of affirmations. And then that's when I then also felt like throughout that process, I was like, maybe this is it. Maybe I can help other families do this.
So through your own journey of trying to figure out how to improve your own self-talk, you created affirmation cards that your daughter picked up and then read, or you
repeated, or she made up.
How did those affirmation cards come about?
I think, I was using it myself. I had written, so I started to write my own kind of self-discovery. Oh my God, I've got so many notepads, and I just kept writing. And it was just all of my own version of affirmations. Like they were not just the one sentence kind of affirmation. I really went like deeper into it. It was like, I am creative because I love to do this, and like whatever it might be. So then it was throughout that I was like, oh, if this works on me, maybe that will work on them. And 4 years ago when I started this, I think I could find 2 other companies in the world that were doing affirmations. And now there's so many, which is so good. There's Louise Hay. Good. She's like the queen, the god of affirmations. And she's just amazing. And she's been around for a long time. But the world's adopting it, I suppose, more and more.
It sounds like that was kind of when you realized that you wanted to do this, right? That you realized that you could actually share this with,
a difference.
It's made an impact on your daughter, and she's calling 100%. It out now in your life. You're like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm so like kids are amazing. They absorb so much, don't they?
Oh God,
it's crazy to think.
And it's the mirror, and I think that's what I'm learning every single day. It's just this whole mirror is like whatever coming out in them is like when I feel disconnected to whether them or to myself, that's when they play up. And it's like, oh my God, okay, hang on a minute, take one step back. But getting back to the affirmation cards, I always wanted to create a brand which had characters, because I know kids, I know how they play with their little toys and their little Barbies or whatever it is. It's always this kind of role play. So I always had this vision that I wanted to create characters where the kids could learn from and relate to. And so it became about them. And I've got my friend who draws all the illustrations, because I'm a very creative mind, but yes, I'm not the creative drawer.
Well, we all have our skills, right? Yeah.
And this is where I started doing a lot of research, and I just the more and more I looked into the research, because I'm a nurse as well, I'm an oncology nurse. So unless anything is scientifically proven or whatever, I find it very hard to adopt. And this is just where I found how neuroplasticity and how we've got to, the more we think a thought, the same thought, it just keeps going through a loop, and it's just we're just going to break that habit, and it doesn't happen overnight, but we just need to then create different, more positive loops that don't have us relive all that negativity all the time.
Being a nurse, you want to find ways to be more positive in your own self-talk and your own self-love, because you found a need there, right? And you wanted to make sure that you were putting yourself first, and not even putting yourself first, but just looking after yourself and giving yourself that space. And then how you shared that with your family.
And this is it. Well, and honestly, from that nursing and the whole research-based point of view, if you ask a scientist, they will kind of tell you each time we think, we feel, or we do something, all the little brain cells and the neurons in our head, they kind of form a little pathway. And so every time that we think a thought, and whether that is, oh, I'm not really good at writing emails, or whatever it might be, or I'm not really good at being a happy mum when my kids are really crying. I mean, I should really be doing that. It goes on a loop, and that loop just keeps feeding. And research has shown that also the stronger emotions that we have connected to these little loops, the stronger of a habit it creates.
Gotcha.
And put simply, the only way that we can disconnect or kind of break that little loop of that pathway that keeps going back and forward is by doing something different. And this is where affirmation comes in. To begin with, it feels so silly because you don't actually kind of half believe it. You kind of go, oh, I am such an amazing person at doing whatever it might be. But this is where you just got to keep doing it, because essentially your brain can't tell the difference between the truth or a lie. But I mean, the affirmations that we're telling aren't lies. It's just that the things that we are currently thinking are things that we have essentially just formed as part of our belief systems that I'm not good at, you know, or...
So what you're saying is like there's basically pathways in our brain that over time from a young age we've ingrained, right? And these might be positive or negative pathways. And if they are negative, it's a feedback loop where we just default to this negative self-thought based off the pathways in our brain. But thanks to science of neuroplasticity, we're able to rewrite these pathways. And we're able to do that through affirmation cards, which is probably one of many different ways to do it, but it is a proven method to kind of change those thoughts in your brain. So I imagine just like going to the gym, right? It's kind of like...
I mean, yeah, it is. And honestly, this is where it comes down to positivity. So, you know, self-talk, positive self-talk training, kindness training. Like, we're not born naturally just being kind, like being kind to others or helping others or whatever. It's a practice. And the more you practice it, the better you get at it. It's the same thing with self-talk. It's the same thing with thankfulness, gratitude, you know, like it really is. Like, it's the more you practice and train that muscle, the stronger it's going to get and the easier it's going to get to deal with all the ever-changing things in the world.
Amazing. And just like going to the gym, I imagine the first time it's going to feel super awkward, right? You're like, how do I do this machine? And what weight should I grab? Are people looking at me? I feel silly. But it's just practice, isn't it? You keep going. And then you're, let's say, a couple months in or a couple weeks in, and you realize, oh, it's actually, you know, it's become a habit. This is something that I'm doing. And then you start noticing results. You're going, oh, wow, I'm stronger, or I'm not puffed when I'm going up the stairs, or whatever it is. You start noticing those little improvements. And so it becomes kind of a positive feedback loop where you're like, I want to keep going to the gym. I want to keep exercising because I can see it's working. I imagine it's the same with this, right?
100%. And it's connecting the feelings to it, because that is like, there's this stronger of a positive association. It's like, it's even proven in sport. It's like, if you keep trying to hit a tennis ball over the thing and you're a professional player, and every time you miss, you have a stronger reaction to them missing, versus if you have a positive association or feeling attached to the, oh my God, I got that one right. It's about just shifting that focus on going from negative associations to positive, but you have to connect the feeling to it. And then keeping the habit, because I'm very, and I think this is my perfectionism and all this, you kind of always want to get it right the first place. Like, so you kind of, oh my God, well, I've done my affirmations today and now it's whereas, but you've got to keep, and then the minute you're up on that height, and then you kind of go, oh, I'm feeling amazing. And then you stop doing all the things that made you feel amazing, and then you go, oh, I better start doing that again.
Yeah, totally. I know that this is where we kind of really bonded over. It was like, I've been on my journey through learning about positive psychology, and I've struggled with depression my whole life. I've, you know, since a young teenager, I felt very nihilistic. I felt like nothing mattered a lot of the time, and that no matter what I did in my life, I was just a tiny little fleck of dust in the grand scheme of things. And I think that that's a thought that I've struggled with. And I found out about positive psychology, and that kind of shifted a lot of things for me, because I found out that through actual daily practice, this is like scientifically proven, you could change your perspective. And all this is perspective. It really is. You could focus on the negative side of life, because there's plenty for us to focus on, right? There's constant disasters. There's all these things going on in the world that you can feel awful about. Or you can choose
turn
to
the
focus
TV on.
Oh my God, let's not even start on the news. It's either you can focus on all these things that are out there. We're not denying that there's not bad things in the world or that there's not things to feel bad about, but it's a choice that you make through conscious decision to focus on things you're grateful for, things that you're thankful for, things that are good in your life. And that starts changing the muscle that you have that's strong, right? And it is like going to the gym. You need to exercise.
And it's a choice.
You have to make that choice. You have to practice daily affirmations and gratitude training and meditation and exercise to make sure that you feel good. If you don't feel good, it's a downward spiral, and you can go down that path of what's the point, and everything's falling apart and the world's terrible. But there's so much to live for. There's so much to be thankful for. And it's a choice that you need to make in your life. I don't know. That's my 2 cents
Yeah,
anyway.
and this is it. Yeah, and getting back to that teenage, and I was the same. I remember I had and no one believes me when I say I burnt all the photos from that period of my life. All I wore was just black clothes, black makeup, and white. Honestly, and it was and that's been my underlying kind of fear, I suppose. It's oh my God, if my kids are going to go through, and I mean, to some degree they probably are, hormones and all the rest of it, but I need to set them up with some sort of default kind of behavior, I suppose, or thought processes, so that if they get to that stage, that they still have that sense of hope, I suppose. And that this whole growth mindset thing is that they know that at least if I practice, it's a practice. It's nothing that I was born with or not born with. It's a practice. Okay, so if I do a little bit more practice of that, then perhaps I don't have to feel like this. So it's that getting away from that hopelessness that I'm sure that you experienced yourself. It's everything just felt hopeless.
Yeah, totally. I think this is amazing, Tess, because at the end of the day, you've come across this in your own journey, trying to figure out how you can just try to improve yourself, realizing that it's a growth mentality. Nobody's perfect. You're not perfect. I'm not perfect. We're all flawed humans, and we're trying to do our best in this world. And one of the best ways that we can be our best selves, that's a lot of bests. The way that we can be our best selves is through gratitude practice. And I think being able to then pass that on to your kids and pass it on, being look, you're going to go through struggles in life. There's going to be things that knock you down, and there's going to be things that you want to change. There's going to be things that come up. The best way to deal with those things is to remember that you can get through this.
You're in control. Yes, and you're in control.
Yeah, exactly.
You're in control. Your mind's not in control of you. And I think I feel like I've lived all my life thinking that my mind is in control of me, whereas it's so not the case.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think that fixed mentality, growth mentality, is what a lot of people struggle with. You're either on this side or that side. And I think we can see people on that side in our lives, the people who everything's happening to them and they're a victim in their universe. Oh, my boss is such a bad person, always putting so much pressure on me. My kids don't listen to me. My husband always ignoring me. All these things are happening to me, and there's no accountability there. None of this is my fault. And then there's other people who are on that growth trajectory being look, these things are happening, but I love my kids, and what can I do to get closer with my kids? My boss, maybe he's going through some stuff in his life and just needs that extra support from me. And I know it's not personal. I know it's not my fault, but what can I do to make that better? My partner, obviously very busy with his life, and maybe we just need to connect more. We need to talk more. What can I do to make that better? And that's kind of the growth mentality. Full accountability in your life, realizing that everything is on you. And that can sound like a burden, but it's also very empowering and very freeing, I think.
Because it gets back to that thing is I'll make that choice. And it's the same. And I think it's something that I've really learned throughout this process is forgiveness, or apologizing. I don't think I've ever really been good at apologizing. I'm sorry. but now if my kids and if we have a big disconnect and if we're arguing or whatever, something happened and they storm off or whatever, I honestly now have started going into that conversation, the aftermaths of that conversation with, first of all, I would just like to say I'm sorry for the way that I reacted. That wasn't really a good way of expressing my feelings about it. However, the point is actually starting a conversation when you've argued with I am sorry for something. Yeah. Completely different output.
That's amazing.
Completely. And the result of a conversation like that, because then, But anyway, that's a different, that's me
Well,
going
I
on.
love all of this, Tess. And it's really cool that to hear your story and hear what you've gone through in inspiring you to create Sharing Kindness is really, it's really aspirational, I think, for a lot of people listening, myself included. What was your first kind of product with Sharing Kindness? What was the thing that, you obviously came up with the concept. How did you get this out there?
The box of confidence.
Nice.
The box of confidence was my very first thing, and it all came from me not having confidence. So it honestly is like back again to like, how do I teach my kids to be confident, resilient, and kind to themselves and others if I don't feel confident myself? So it kind of like just, that's where it all starts. So yeah, it's just a beautiful box of affirmation cards, and they're all kind of designed, purposely hand drawn based on the four characters that they then can kind of relate to and learn from. And there's little, and they've got their own struggles and magical powers, and it's absolutely beautiful.
Anybody who's listening, if you haven't seen the box of confidence from Kindness, it's adorable.
Beautiful.
And all the details and efforts that you put in, like the small things, it's so amazing. You've got these great characters, amazing message, and the science behind it as well, I think is everything is in there that you need to help your kids, be empowered. And yourself.
Honestly, I need these cards more than anyone else. I need positive affirmations more.
I think we all do, though. That's isn't it? Like, I think sometimes we often learn by teaching. So by teaching your kids something, you're going to learn something too throughout that process, no doubt. So I think that the box of confidence so that was your first product, and it's such an impactful one. So you launched that. How did it go? What was some of the key highlights, I guess, of when you launched the Sharing Kindness brand?
The key highlights was that I could honestly, I think the key highlight was just the fact to launch something, because there was this whole imposter syndrome, and I just like, oh my God, I can't believe I did this. Like, and then I kept redoing it, and it's not good enough. And then I was like, oh, actually, one of the cards is I am good enough. I was like, that's right. Yes, that's right. So the biggest accomplishment.
That must have been quite a journey.
Yeah, and this is what I mean. Like, the biggest accomplishment of launching that box of confidence was the fact that I'm good enough. And it was honestly the feeling of putting my work out there to be judged, because ultimately, and it's so much easier to judge online and all this, but everyone loved it. I think when I first launched it, there was that social media influencer that got behind it, and honestly, within 2 hours, from 2 hours of launching, I had this social media influencer get behind it, and I sold 444 boxes of confidence in 48 hours. And I was like, 448. I was like, oh, that's a sign.
That's such an amazing, like, to go from like at a concept that you were using yourself, seeing the impact on your family and on your kids, to then having the bravery to kind of put it out there in the world and create a product that you think could be impactful for others, their kids and their families as well, to see that pay off. Wow, that would have been quite a journey.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, which then led into other ones, and because this was like, that's very self-reflective and very me, and then I just wanted to also do something that reflects both in and out, but a little bit more kindness as well, which I then reinvented the chocolate advent calendar. I said, ditch the chocolates and spread kindness instead.
That's awesome. Yeah. For me, I think that Christmas and a lot of the holidays have kind of been like taken away from what they're supposed to be about, which is, sharing kindness, looking after our family and our loved ones, being together, connecting. Yeah. And, after the success of launching those cards, you then released the Sharing Kindness Advent Calendar, which people can order now for Christmas, right? Mm-hmm. That's pretty exciting.
Pre-order. Yeah, exactly. That's really exciting. But yes, it's essentially every day leading up to Christmas, instead of a chocolate piece, and believe me, I do live by this. I do not give my kids chocolate advent calendars, even though we go into freaking Woolies and God knows where we are. Can we have a chocolate advent calendar as well? No, you cannot. No, I'm kidding. But so it's just the random acts of kindnesses every day leading up to Christmas with reusable stickers. And then on the back, there's some beautiful affirmations that they get to scratch scratch forward to see the hidden message behind. It's a bit hard to explain in words, but yeah, it's just an absolutely stunning way of just counting down the days to Christmas instead of just feeding your kids chocolate peas every day, even before breakfast. Yeah,
I think
so
that's
much more meaningful.
an amazing like family experience you can do with kids. Kids are probably all ages. Like what feedback have you gotten from customers in terms of like, the different, I guess, what are customers saying about the advent calendar?
Yeah, honestly, the number one thing, like the bestest thing I ever got is that someone sent me an email and they're like, Tess, it's March and my kid's still playing with her advent calendar. Like, you will not believe it.
Wow.
And it's just, and I think it's just a connection. I think it's the connection and the real conversations that it has, and then just a pure feeling of, because we don't forget about, like, when we're kind to others, it has a threefold effect. So kindness has a threefold effect. So don't forget about that, because when you share kindness with others, it makes them feel really good. Yeah. But it also makes you feel really good. And I think this is the brilliant thing about this advent calendar, is like, when we're doing all these kind things for others, it makes you feel so freaking good on the inside. But it also, the third thing is, like, anyone watching a random act of kindness being performed also has endorphins released in their bodies. Like, it's scientifically proven again, which is like this threefold. So honestly, if everyone in the whole world would just set out and do one kind thing each day, and then there's one other person who watches, oh my God, like, the ripple effects are just enormous.
Totally, yeah. I love the advent calendar. I think that it has such an amazing, like, we talked about the gratitude challenge, which I'm sure we'll focus on, in the future together. But, having that as a thing that you can do together as a family is so impactful, and being able to do acts of kindness as well around Christmas. I think that's really like what Christmas should be all about. And it's very magical. So it's a really amazing product. And right now we're recording this in August, so there's still plenty of time for this in September to go out and order a calendar and give it a go, because I think it is such an amazing way to celebrate Christmas with your kids. So yeah, it's an amazing product. So now we're flash forward to 2022. You've launched the Box of Confidence, launched the Advent calendars as well. So what's the vision for sharing kindness going forward?
The vision now is to really make this into to make kindness and gratitude and positive affirmations into a daily habit.
Yeah.
And I think this is where, it's not just for Christmas. It's not just for, it's not just positive affirmations. It's the whole, it's a whole combined, like, practicing thankfulness and practicing positive affirmations and spreading this to others, or spreading this with others, is honestly, it's the way. So I just want to create something easy, something that doesn't take up a lot of time, that just is very accessible, I suppose, for people around the whole world to gain the benefits from.
Awesome.
So
yeah, and
I
I guess
want to create something online. Like, I want to create like an online game, or
Ooh, that sounds exciting.
Yes.
That's really cool, Tess. I think this is why we're working together, right? Like, I know we've had many long conversations around the positive impact that this could make on not just families and young kids, but anyone who really is involved in the process. And I think the world needs this, especially now. There's so much people who are feeling isolated and alone and nervous and scared about the future. And I think we need people to share kindness.
And I'm very much into I think this is throughout my whole process of my brain as well. I'm very much into the how to. But how to? Yeah, well, can someone just give me a little list, a checklist of just tell me how to do it, and I'll follow the list and it will be all good. And that is my 100%. Perfectionism, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
But what I've realized is that there is no how to. I mean, there is to some degree as well, of course, because there's you've got to actually start practicing to be able to learn somewhat. But that practice generally also starts with just being curious about yourself and what is going on, and then just reflect that out to what am I thankful for at the moment. And sometimes it's harder than other times to really dig deep into that space. But
no, totally.
And honestly,
I think that's really impactful. I think it's really like you're trying to establish a good framework on how to live a good, healthy, and rewarding life, where you're not being too critical on yourself and you're not being so judgmental and not having to tick all the boxes. It's more about making sure that you're raising resilient and empathetic children. And through that process, you need to practice what you preach. You need to live that.
Show.
Not just,
And this is it. Yeah, it's about showing the way.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Not
Yeah.
preaching the way. Like, you should be more thankful. And why? I mean, prime example, we just had a birthday party just the other day, and obviously it's hard watching as a younger or an older sister, it's hard to watch the other person receive gifts. And it was honestly this like, well, why can't I be more thankful for, why am I feeling so jealous? It's like, that's okay. And it's like, give yourself permission. It's okay to feel that way, but you know what, it's a practice. We're not just born with feeling thankful every time someone else gets a gift, or feeling
So
thankful
true.
that, I was born blonde and not brunette, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But it's a practice. And I think that's 100, it goes back to that growth mindset thing again. It's just this whole, the more you practice, and it's not a big practice either. And I think that's the difference. Like, gratitude doesn't take up. It's not like going to the gym in that aspect that you've got to spend 45 minutes there and you've got to drive
Sweating
there
your
and
butt
get
off.
dressed.
Yeah.
And you've got to, that's a big thing. Like a 2-minute,
Yeah.
like honestly, this is what like research shows, like 2 minutes a day for 21 days, and you are already on the way and on a very good path to having created like a positive habit.
That's awesome. And I think, just going back to the birthday example with your daughter and your eldest being, I guess, a bit jealous or a bit like feeling emotions that she's like, why am I not feeling grateful right now? It's like, you don't want to shame that, because that's human nature. We're all going to feel moments where we don't feel happy or thankful or grateful. We're going to feel sad. We're going to feel jealous. We're going to feel upset, angry. But it's being able to take a step back, see ourselves reacting with that emotion and going, okay, this is something that I can react to, right? I'm not shaming myself for feeling these things, but being at least mindful enough to recognize that you're feeling that way, allow it to happen, and then not let it control your actions, right? You're not going to go up and steal your younger sister's toys and kick over her castle. I don't know what kids do.
No, and this is it. No, and it's just the awareness. And I think that's where it all starts. It's this self-talk, and it's about catching yourself. And it's just about being aware and then going and choosing and control. And which then takes us into this little game that we've perhaps, because I think you need to make it fun too.
Yeah,
And I think
totally.
this is the thing. I think affirmations, I love affirmations, and they're, this whole mindful way, and it's this like kind of calm, like meditation, but you want things to be fun because play is very important part of your life as well.
I definitely agree. I think that with this podcast, we're going to talk about so much. We've got so many exciting announcements coming up this year with new products. I can't wait to talk about the science behind all of this in more depth and talk about studies and where parents or interested parties can go to find out more. And I'm really excited to be on this journey with you, Tess, just to be your co-host and help you in reaching more of an audience. I think a podcast is fantastic for being able to just keep that consistency, talking to your audience and connecting and having real conversations. So I think this is the start of something really special. And I just wanted to say thank you for letting me be on this journey with you. I think it's really humbling, and I'm excited to see where this goes.
No, I'm thankful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I do. As the experts say, you should say 3 times.
Oh, well, thank you then. So just to sum up, where can people go to find out more information, to follow you online, and what are some things that you think that they should be doing going forward?
SharingKindness.com, easiest way. Obviously, also got Instagram, Sharing Kindness, or Sharing_Kindness_. And yeah, if you could just, one little thing that you're thankful for, or maybe make it better. Maybe one thing that you're very thankful for someone else, send them a text, send them a message, send them a little video, just telling them that you are thankful for them because ...
I love that.
I kid you
That's
not,
really
like
cool.
it's
Pass it
massive.
forward.
Like,
That's awesome.
comes back tenfold.
Well, Tess, I think that we've covered off so much today, and I really appreciate you jumping on to the podcast and just kicking this off with such gusto.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you like what you heard, can you please subscribe to us or follow us on YouTube? It would honestly mean the absolute world to us. And if you would like to leave a comment or a review, please do so. If you would like to back our Kickstarter campaign, you can do so on Kickstarter. type in sharing kindness and it will come up, or go to our website, sharingkindness.com. Stay tuned, and thank you so much for all your support. We will see you in the next episode. Thank you.